Amara's hands didn't stop shaking after she pressed send. For a second, she thought the screen might freeze, reject it, give her time to change her mind. It didn't. The email went through. Just like that. No warning, no hesitation, no mercy. Inside it was everything. Buried memos no one was supposed to find. Signatures that didn't belong to the people who signed them. A deportation order stamped with quiet violence. And one name. Chairman Kang Byung-ho. The man who destroyed her father. The man who built an empire on silence. And the father of the man she loved. Her breath caught halfway in her chest, not fully in, not fully out, like her body didn't know whether to survive this moment or collapse inside it. She slid down the wall slowly until she hit the floor, her back pressing into the cold, like she needed something solid to remind her she was still here. Outside, Seoul glittered, bright, alive, unbothered. The kind of beauty that didn't ask who it left behind. Her phone buzzed. Jun-woo. Once. Twice. Again. She stared at his name until it blurred. Then she turned the phone over, face down, like if she couldn't see him, he couldn't reach her. But the vibration continued, relentless, insistent, like guilt. There are choices that hurt, and then there are choices that rearrange you permanently. Amara had lived through being unseen, not ignored, worse, unacknowledged, like she existed just outside the frame of everyone else's life. She had survived 12-hour hospital shifts where patients asked for someone else without even looking at her. Colleagues who smiled politely but never said her name the same way twice. Supervisors who praised her work but never quite trusted her hands. She had learned how to shrink when necessary, to speak softer, to exist carefully. She had survived all of it. But this wasn't something she could shrink her way out of, because this time she wasn't the one being pushed out. She was the one burning everything down, and it still felt like she was the one losing, because the man she loved, the only man who had ever looked at her like she wasn't temporary, had known. Not everything, but enough. Enough to speak, enough to stop her, enough to choose. And he chose silence. 3 years earlier, she arrived in Seoul carrying more than luggage. Grief has a weight, not physical, but it changes the way you stand, the way you breathe, the way you expect the world to treat you. Her father had not been defeated in a dramatic way. There was no shouting, no collapse, just a quiet, systematic erasure, like someone slowly deleting a life one document at a time, one accusation, one signature, one company. Kangstar Holdings. She remembered the moment it became real. Her father sitting at the table, staring at a document like it had rewritten him. "They said I violated agreements," he said slowly. "Agreements I've never seen before." His voice didn't break. That was the terrifying part. It just flattened, like something inside him had been switched off, and no one knew how to turn it back on. Emmanuel Okoye didn't lose everything overnight. He lost it piece by piece. Respect, clients, partnerships, then finally, himself. He stopped correcting people when they got things wrong, stopped arguing, stopped explaining, stopped believing effort mattered. Amara noticed the silence first, then the stillness, then the way he started sitting by the window every evening, not watching anything, just sitting, as if waiting for a version of his life that wasn't coming back. That was the moment she made her decision, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet promise to herself. Someone did this, and I will find out who. Seoul didn't welcome her. It processed her. Forms, documents, approvals, delays. She learned quickly, you don't enter the city, you negotiate your existence inside it. Her apartment in Mapo was half underground. The window sat just above street level. She could see shoes more than faces, people passing, lives continuing, without her. At the hospital she became exceptional out of necessity, not because she wanted to stand out, but because invisibility wasn't an option when people's lives were in your hands. Patients who refused her at first eventually asked for her. That was her quiet revenge. Not anger, not confrontation, just undeniable competence. But outside those hospital walls, she disappeared again. Meals alone, conversations short, eyes that moved past her too quickly. At night, she opened her laptop. The folder stared back at her. Dad's case. It had started small, a few documents, a timeline. Now it was something else, something heavier, something that felt like it was slowly pulling her deeper the more she tried to understand it, like the truth didn't want to be found, but wasn't letting her go either. Then, one Thursday night, everything shifted. Not dramatically, not with warning, just quietly. She stopped at a pojangmatcha because she didn't want to go home, not because home was bad, but because it was empty, and emptiness has a way of getting louder at night. He was already there, struggling, not with life, with chopsticks, and not in a charming way, in a completely unfiltered, almost embarrassing way. Sauce slipping, grip failing, slight frustration under his breath. It was real, too real. "You're holding them wrong," she said. He looked at her like she had interrupted something serious. "I've been holding them wrong for 30 years, he replied. "I think it's too late to fix me." She laughed, and immediately something felt unfamiliar, because the sound didn't belong to the version of her that had been surviving. It belonged to someone else, someone lighter, someone she hadn't been in a long time. His name was June, just June, simple, too simple. He pronounced her name correctly, the first time, no pause, no correction, no effort, just right. She felt it, that small shift in her chest, that dangerous, quiet opening. "Names matter," he said, and something about the way he said it, not performative, not casual, but intentional, made her feel like he understood something he hadn't explained. They talked longer than she planned, longer than she should have, about loneliness, about being out of place, about what it means to exist in a place that doesn't quite see you. He listened too well, not just hearing, but absorbing, tracking, remembering. And that should have been her first warning, because people who listen like that are either very rare or very practiced. She walked home that night with something unfamiliar sitting in her chest. Not happiness, not yet, but something close enough to it that it scared her. Seen, but not safely. They met again, and again, and again, and each time it got easier, too easy. He never pushed, never rushed, never made her feel like she needed to explain herself, and that, more than anything else, is what made her trust him. But trust has a flaw. It doesn't ask enough questions when things feel right. Sometimes it ignores the silence.
And June had silence in him. Small pauses. moments where his eyes shifted just slightly, where answers came, but not completely. She noticed, but she didn't follow it. Because love, even in its earliest form, has a way of protecting the version of reality you want to believe. And by the time she realized that, it was already too late. So he's kind, he listens, he pronounces your name right, Ji-yoon said, slurping ramyeon across Amara's small kitchen table. What's the catch? There's no catch, Amara said, a little too quickly. Ji-yoon didn't respond immediately. She just watched her. That kind of silence that doesn't argue, but doesn't believe you either. There's always a catch, she said finally, especially with men who make you feel comfortable too fast. Too fast, Amara frowned. Ji-yoon tilted her head slightly. Men who feel safe before you've seen them break usually have something they're hiding. Amara forced a small laugh. You're overthinking it. Maybe, Ji-yoon said, but just don't fall in love with a version of him you haven't tested yet. Amara ignored it, but not completely. The words didn't disappear. They stayed, quiet, waiting. 6 weeks later, under the soft glow of lanterns outside Gyeongbokgung Palace, June kissed her. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't rushed. It was careful. Almost too careful. Like he was asking for permission for something bigger than a kiss. He pulled back immediately. Is that okay? He asked softly. There was something in his voice. Not fear. Not hesitation. Something else. Something that sounded like guilt dressed as caution. Amara noticed it. Just for a second. Then she pushed it away. Yes, she said. And this time, she didn't hesitate. In the weeks that followed, she began to change. Not dramatically, but noticeably. She laughed without thinking. She slept without waking up in the middle of the night. She caught herself smiling at nothing during long shifts. And that scared her more than anything. Because peace had never come easily to her. And anything that came easily usually left just as easily. She told him things she hadn't planned to say. About Enugu. About her mother's cooking. About her father. And how he used to say the world wasn't built for people like them. And did you believe him? June asked. She shrugged. I didn't want to, but life has a way of proving certain things. June was quiet for a moment. Too quiet. Then he said, Maybe the world isn't built for people like you. He paused. But people like you are the ones who change it. She smiled, but something in his tone lingered, like he wasn't just speaking generally, like he was speaking from something personal. That night, sitting on her apartment floor, he held her hand. Not casually, not absent-mindedly, tightly. Like he was holding on to something he wasn't sure he deserved. Amara didn't question it. She should have. It was a Tuesday morning when everything shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. The news was playing in the background while she ate, half attention, half routine, until a name pulled her focus. Kang Star Holdings. Her body reacted before her mind did. Stillness. Sharp. Immediate. Then the image appeared, and everything inside her dropped. It wasn't confusion.
Not denial. Something worse. Recognition. Instant. Unavoidable. June. Not someone like him. Not similar. Him. Exactly him. But not the version she knew. This version was framed, defined, controlled. His name wasn't just June anymore. It had weight, history, power. Kang Jun-woo. Her fingers loosened around the spoon. It clattered against the bowl. She didn't pick it up. The screen kept talking. Wealth, power, influence. Words that didn't belong to the man who struggled with chopsticks and laughed too easily. Or maybe they did, and she just hadn't seen it. Her chest tightened, but still, no tears, no reaction, just silence. Then her eyes drifted, slowly, to her laptop. Dad's case. And suddenly, everything felt connected. She didn't call him, because calling him would make it real. And if it became real, she wouldn't be able to control what came next. So she did what she always did. She worked. But this time, it wasn't just investigation. It was obsession. Dates. Documents, patterns, names. She didn't just look, she dug, deeper than before, harder than before, like something inside her had shifted from searching to needing answers. And then she found it. Not directly, not clearly, but enough. The compliance division. The authorization chain, the signatures, the pattern, and at the end of it, one name, Chairman Kang Byung-ho. Her father's collapse wasn't an accident. She leaned back slowly, her heartbeat loud in her ears, not fast, heavy. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't distance. This wasn't unrelated. This was him. For 3 days, she carried it alone. She went to work, smiled, spoke gently, did everything exactly the same. But inside, everything had shifted. She responded to Jun-woo's messages, short, careful, neutral. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "Are you okay?" he texted. She stared, typed, deleted, typed again. "I'm just tired." She hated how easy that lie came. On the 4th day, she went to Ji-yoon. Ji-yoon opened the door and stopped immediately. "You look different," she said. Not concerned, certain. Amara didn't sit right away. She placed the folder on the table first, like it needed to be between them, like it was part of the conversation. Then she spoke. And when she finished, Ji-yoon didn't react. Not immediately. That silence again. But this time, it was heavier. "Amara," she said quietly. "I know," Amara replied. "How long?" 4 days. Ji-yoon swallowed. "And him?" Amara's voice lowered. "He knows something." "Something?" Ji-yoon pressed. "He told me he left because his father did something he couldn't justify." She laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. He just didn't want to know the details. Ji-yoon closed her eyes briefly. "That's not innocence," Amara said. "No," Ji-yoon tried quietly. It's worse. Then came the second fracture. I need to tell you something. The hesitation alone was enough. My part-time job, Ji-yoon's voice dropped. It's at a Kongstar subsidiary. Amara didn't react. Not yet. And I might have mentioned you. That was it. That was the moment. The ground didn't shake. Nothing dramatic happened. But something inside Amara stopped trusting anything. They know, she said. Not a question. Ji-yoon nodded slowly. I didn't understand what I was saying at the time.
Amara held his gaze, and for a brief moment, she saw it clearly. This wasn't just about her father. This was about systems, power, control, and people like her were never supposed to fight back. I think, she said slowly, you've spent a long time believing no one would ever say no to you. Something flickered in his eyes, small but real. She stood and walked out. Not because she wasn't afraid, but because she was. That night, she met Jun-woo. And before he spoke, she knew. Something in his face, the way he looked at her. Not confused, not surprised, prepared. How long have you known? She asked. He didn't ask what she meant. That was her answer. And somehow, that hurt more than anything he could have said. I suspected, he said. After the third time we talked, the timeline, the industry, something didn't add up. But you chose not to know, Amara finished. He swallowed. I chose not to confirm. She let out a quiet breath. Not anger. Something colder. That's worse. Silence stretched between them. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Honest. So you let me fall in love with you, while you were standing inside the truth the entire time. I didn't plan that, he said quickly. Amara, I didn't expect. No, you just didn't stop it. That landed. Harder than shouting ever could. He turned toward her, his voice breaking slightly. I was going to tell you. When? She asked. He hesitated. And that hesitation said everything. She nodded slowly. Right. Don't look at me like that, he whispered. Like what? Like I'm the same as him. She studied his face, really looked at him. For the first time, not as the man she loved, but as the man who made a choice. You're not the same, she said quietly. He exhaled. Relief. Too early. You're just the reason he got away with it. Something inside him collapsed. You could see it. Not physically, but in the way his shoulders lowered, like he had finally run out of ways to defend himself. My father sits by a window every day, she continued, her voice steady, but thinner now, He doesn't argue anymore, doesn't complain, doesn't even ask questions. She paused, then added, he just exists. Jun-woo closed his eyes. And I used to think that was strength, she said. Her voice cracked slightly. I used to think surviving quietly meant you were still winning. She shook her head. But now I know. It just means no one came back for you. That hit deeper than anything before. Because this wasn't accusation anymore. It was truth. I came back, Jun-woo said quietly. She looked at him. No, she said. You came back for yourself. Silence. That was the moment everything between them ended. Not the shouting, not the betrayal, not even the truth, but the clarity. He reached for her hand. She let him. Just for a second. And in that second, everything they existed, every laugh, every quiet moment, every version of him she believed in. Then she pulled away. I'm going to expose everything. No hesitation. No emotion left in the words. Just decision. I know, he said. I'm not doing it to hurt you. I know. I'm doing it because my father deserves his name back. I know. She nodded once. And this time, knowing won't save you. That was new. That wasn't in the original. Because for the first time, she wasn't just walking away. She was making sure he felt the full weight of what silence costs. She turned and walked. He didn't follow. Because some endings don't need distance. They need understanding. The story didn't explode. It unfolded. Slow. Precise. Unavoidable. One article became 3. 3 became 10. Then names started surfacing. Patterns. Connections. Not just her father. Not just one case. A system. 4 more families came forward. Different countries. Same outcome. Same company. Same silence. Kangstar didn't collapse immediately. Power rarely does. It resists, denies, rewrites. But this time, there was too much truth. And then, Jun-woo spoke. Not to defend himself, not to protect the company, but to destroy what was left of his place in it. I knew enough, he said in the interview. Enough to ask questions. Enough to act. And I didn't. He didn't look away. Didn't perform regret. I thought avoiding the truth made me different from the people causing harm. A pause. Then, it didn't. It made me useful to them. That line spread faster than the story itself. He didn't just lose his position. He lost his name. Because now when people heard Kang Jun-woo, they didn't hear power. They heard failure. Amara watched the interview once. Only once. Because something about the way he said it, not defensive, not emotional, just final, made it harder to hate him. And that was the part she wasn't prepared for. Ji-Yun came over that night. She didn't apologize again. Some mistakes go past apologies. They ate in silence. "How do you feel?" Ji-Yun asked eventually. Amara didn't answer immediately. Because the truth wasn't simple. "I thought it would feel like justice," she said slowly. "And?" She exhaled. "It feels like I cut something out of my life." Ji-Yun frowned slightly. "And now there's space where it used to be. Not relief. Not pain. Space. And space can be just as difficult to live with." When she called her father,
She expected silence, but instead, he laughed. Not fully, not completely, but enough. And something inside her finally broke. Not from pain, from release. Because for the first time in years, he sounded like himself again. "My daughter," he said softly. "My stubborn, impossible daughter." She smiled through tears she didn't realize had started falling. "I told you I'd fix it," he said gently. "No," he said, "you didn't fix it." A pause. "You faced it." That stayed with her, long after the call ended. That night, Amara sat by the window. The city hadn't changed. Still loud, still bright, still indifferent. But she had. Because now she understood something she hadn't before. Silence doesn't just protect the guilty. It transforms the people who allow it. She looked down at her hands, steady now. Not because she was healed, but because she had chosen. And sometimes that's the closest thing to peace you get. Because the hardest truth wasn't that she lost him. It was he could have saved her world and chose not to. If someone hurts you through silence instead of action, is that easier to forgive or impossible to forget?